Hello, I recently bought an eBay bundle of watercolour paints and there was quite an assortment in there, including these Isaro watercolours. I'll link to the video in the description box where I show you the whole bundle, but since then I've been asked a couple of times if I'd swatch out the Isaro paints, and so that's what I'm going to be doing in today's video. I received these 18 colours as part of the bundle, and then I also had a few Isaro colours of my own. So I'll include those in the swatching as well. I've only got one repeat colour from my own, which was this powdery pink. So the tubes have got a paper wrapper on. Isaro paints are made in Belgium. So you've got the name on the front, and then you've got a series number, an opacity rating, a light fast rating, which is a number out of 8. The tubes are all 7mm, and then you've got pigment information. This first one then is Isaro Orange. I'll just swatch them out in circles, and I'll do a more concentrated layer of paint on one side and then come out with a more watery brush on the other side. So the Isaro Orange is a mixture of PO61, PR206 and PBR23, and the most similar colours that I could find from my own paints. There's Quartz Transparent Pyrrole Orange, which is PO71, and it's quite similar to that, but it's a little bit more browny. Then we've got Roman Schmall's Aquarius Orange, which is more of a red leaning orange. And then there's Daniel Smith's Quinacridone Sienna, which is again quite similar. I'd say that the Isaro Orange falls somewhere between the Transparent Pyrrole Orange and Daniel Smith's Quinacridone Sienna. And this is a more opaque paint. So I'm assuming that this symbol stands for semi-opaque, but that's definitely what I think it is in real life. And it's 8 out of 8 light fastness, and it's a mixture of PW6:1 and PR122. Now this one's come up a little bit more purpley greyy than my original Isaro powdery pink, though it might be that if you squeezed out a half pan of this and given it a good mix, you might end up with something closer to that. I've just taken a little bit out the top of the tube. And then next up we've got a very opaque one. It's a lovely colour. This is pinkish beige. So that's opaque, 8 out of 8 light fastness, PY42, PR264 and PW6. So this time the Daniel Smith Red Fuchsite Genuine is a lot closer to it. And just to show you what Potter's Pink looks like next to it, it's quite a bit cooler. This is Winsor & Newton's version. Then we've got Powdery Beige. This is another very opaque one. So this one is PY42 again, PR122 and PW6. Opaque and 8 out of 8 light fastness. This is definitely more yellow leaning than the pinkish beige, and I don't really have anything like it. That's Holbein Shell Pink and Daniel Smith's Red Fuchsite Genuine. Then I move on to this red, which is Scarlet Red. And this has got a slightly different format on the back. I think it's got 4 stars of light fastness and possibly transparent, but it's PR255. I'm swatching onto Canson XL watercolour paper, by the way, and I'm using a number 8 silver black velvet brush. I've got a couple of other PR255s, Daniel Smith's Spiral Scarlet and A Gallows Vermilion Red, and they're both pretty similar in colour. The Daniel Smith Spiral Scarlet is my favourite because of how smooth it is, and I'd say that this Scarlet Red felt a little bit coarser, but was still very nice. The A Gallo feels a little bit denser, like most of A Gallo's paints do. Then next is Quinacridone Carmine, and this is PR202. And I don't think I've tried this pigment before. So that's an absolute gorgeous purpley pink, and it reminded me most of Winsor & Newton's Permanent Magenta when I was swatching it out. But when I've got that out, that's a little bit more purpley. That's the magenta, PR122, and that's a more pink. This is Roman Schmall's Quinacridone Violet. That's probably the most similar thing that I've got. And then we're on to the first of the paints, which has got some pearlescence in it. And this is one which I swatched out in my previous video, and it's called Austral Rose. I'm not really someone who's into shimmery paint much, but I find this a really interesting one. It's a mixture of PB29, PR122 and the pearlescence. But the pearlescent element in this is a coppery colour, and you can't quite see it yet, but once it's dried hopefully it'll show a bit more. I'm interested to compare this to the Daniel Smith colour, which is a mixture of PB29 and PR122. Okay, this is what I was thinking of. It was Rose of Ultramarine. So this is much more pinky, and this is more purpley. But yeah, I really, really like this. Next up, we've got one called Pearly Rose Deep, which is PR170 and pearlescence. This one had some binder separation, so I've jiggled it around with the cocktail stick. I think it's still got quite a bit of binder in this. So that's a very delicate pinky lilac colour, and is actually quite similar to Daniel Smith's Duochrome Hibiscus. Then next up we've got Ametrine Violet. This is PR122, PV16 and pearlescence. This looks like it might have a similar kind of coppery undertone to it, like the Austral Rose. I've not swatched most of these out yet before today. actually really like that one. It reminds me a little bit of Galaxy Pink, I think, because of the kind of browny coppery undertone to it. And the Galaxy Pink has sort of got that browny mutedness to it. And then next, a colour that I always like, and that's Perilene Violet. And this is PV29. Oh, it's so nice. This feels like a very kind of bluey purpley Perilene Violet, as opposed to a more like browny reddy leaning one. Painting that out, I'd say that the Isaro paints do feel a little bit coarser than some of the equivalent pigments that I've got, same as with this Scarlet Red, but it is absolutely beautiful though. So this is my Roman Schmalz Perilene Violet, same pigment number, but it's a lot more maroony. I haven't swatched out my Michael Harding Perilene Violet yet, so I'll just compare that. So that's different again. And then the last one for this page, I've got 22 paints altogether, by the way, which is why I'm fitting 11 on each page, though this isn't as pleasing a layout. So the last one is Boreal Blue, which I already had. And this one of mine, I don't know if all the Isaro paints dry quite hard, but I find that the caps are quite difficult to get off. And this Boreal Blue takes a little bit to re-wet. I do really like the colour of the Boreal Blue though. It's just PB29, so ultramarine blue, with pearlescence, and again it's got a kind of a coppery feel to it. Yeah, it's definitely got a kind of a very warm undertone to it. I don't have anything exactly like it. I think the closest kind of overall is Roman Schmalz Shadow Violet, but that's not as purpley. It's got more kind of green undertone in it. But yeah, definitely quite a unique paint. I'll try and show you the kind of coppery shimmer that I was talking about in this Austral Rose now. I don't know if it's picking up at all. The Pearly Rose Deep, there's no other colour in it, it's just a kind of a pale pinky sheen. The Ametrine Violet, it's kind of hard to say what colour the shimmer is. It's kind of like almost like a green leaning brown or a silvery brown. So that's the first page anyway. And then the next one is one I'd bought, and this is Eternal Summit. And it's a mixture of PW4 and PB36 plus pearlescence. And here it's come out quite blue, but my previous swatch of it is more green leaning. So I'd say you probably do need to squeeze them out and give them a good mix. I'll say it again, but some of the lids are very hard to get off. I've been needing to use pliers for a couple. So this is one of the colours which I swatched out in my previous video. And it looks horrible coming out of the tube, like a kind of a sludgy grey. But I actually really like this paint. This is Apatite Blue. So it's not until the pearlescent in it starts to settle out that you can see the blue in it. And next I've got Azure Blue, and this is just PB36, which is a cerulean blue. It's a very pigmented cerulean blue and quite a bright one. So this is my other PB36s, Rosa Gallery Cerulean Blue and Roman Schmalz Cobalt Cerulean Blue. And I'd say that they're both a little bit more muted, though the Rosa Gallery is closer in colour. Then we've got an Autumn Green, which I already had. And I really like this colour. So it just looks like a forest green when it goes down, but as it starts to settle and dry, you can see that there's a purple element to it, and it's a mixture of PG7 and PV16. And then we've got a Perilene green, and that's just a regular PBK31. I'll just show a couple of comparisons. For the Nordman green, I'd say the closest colour I've got is Harbour Blue from A Gallo, though it's quite different, but colour-wise it is actually the closest I've got. And then the Perilene green, this is Winsor & Newton's, and this is Roman Schmalz, and I'd say it's pretty comparable really. And this is one I swatched out in my previous video as well. This is Peridot green. This is PY154, PG36 and Pearlescent. And you can probably see it best in the brush actually. It's got quite a bit of shimmer to it. I'm not very keen on this shade of green, but this sap green looks like it's got a bit more yellow in it. I definitely like that a lot more. That's PY139 and PG36. And then another light green, Isaro Green Light. This is PG36, PY35 and PY42. The next is one that I already had, and this is Mindy Green. And I've made a total mess of this tube, but I absolutely love this paint. I just think it's such a nice, interesting colour to use as like a highlight foliage colour in landscapes. It's not quite yellow, but it's not quite green. And although it's quite a bright colour, it's still not completely in your face. There's like a subtleness to it. It does say it's pearlescent, but it's almost not noticeable at all. And that's Sennelier's brown pink, and that's a Coors green gold PY129. But you can see it's a lot warmer than those. So yeah, definitely like that one. And I've got a couple of pictures. This was actually from a painting by David Parfitt, just kind of my impression of it. But I've got the Nordman green here. I've got the Mindy green in the foreground. And here's another one with the Nordman green and Mindy green. That's the Mindy green as well. And then the last two, this is shaded beige. Oh, I quite like that colour. That's a mixture of PY42, PR264, PW6 and PBK31. I will mention though that this one's got quite an odour to it. I noticed it a little bit on some of the others, but it was quite strong with this one. And it's not a very pleasant smell. I'm not sure what that is, but yeah, I have noticed it a few times. And then the very last one is sepia. And that is a really lovely, rich, pigmented sepia. And that's PR101, PBK11 and PBR7. I'll just show you these ones up close. So you can see the blue has separated out from the coppery shimmer element to it. Though there is actually a bit of kind of turquoisey shimmer in it as well. And that's the Nordman green now that the purple has granulated a bit. We've got the shimmer of the peridot, and it is a green shimmer as well. And I can't see any pearlescence. Well, maybe the tiniest bit of gold shimmer in the Mindy green. So that's all of my Isaro watercolours. I hope that was helpful to those of you who requested it. Isaro definitely have some very unique colours, and there's some in here which I absolutely love. I think the Austral Rose, the Ametrine Violet, the Perilene Violet, the Boreal Blue, Apatite Blue, Nordman Green, Sap Green was really nice, and the Mindy Green, and the shaded beige, and then the Sepia and Perilene Green were really nice, solid versions of those colours. Actually, this Quinacridone Carmine was lovely too. A few of them had a funny smell to them, and on the whole I'm probably less likely to use ones that have got quite a bit of white in them. Also, while I was checking out some information on them on Jackson's Art, I saw that they're actually on sale over there at the moment. Though Jackson's Art don't seem to have the full range of them. I couldn't find some of these colours on there. As always, thanks very much for watching. Bye!